everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm doing another Friday sews for you today. This one's a little bit different and a little bit of fun, I think. Since there's been quite a lot of people joining in with the Friday sews recently, I know that some of them have been saying that they've had queries about more information, because obviously a lot of people have only found our channels because of the Friday sews. So you may not necessarily have followed myself or some of the other vloggers before. And so we thought it would be a good idea to do a set of introduction videos. And so to that end, the lovely Jen at Today in Jen's Sewing Room, who I believe is the originator for all these Friday sews, came up with an idea of doing 10 questions that we could all answer and put it out today, and then you would be able to look through everybody's vlogs and get to know a little bit more about us. So before I get on to my 10 questions, I just wanted to say a very big thank you to everybody who has been watching and subscribing and liking my videos recently. I've had a ton of new subscribers, so welcome to you all. It's lovely to have you here, and I'm really enjoying putting out more regular videos, so hopefully I will keep that up. Yes, as I say, thank you so much. On the flip side, as I have had so many people viewing my videos, over half of those that watch my videos aren't yet subscribed, so it would be really fantastic if you could subscribe and press that little like button. The way the whole YouTube algorithm thing works means that the more subscribers and the more likes and comments I get on my videos, the more YouTube will share me with like-minded people out there, so they will hopefully get to see my channel, which they may not have heard of before. So it'd be lovely if I could reach more people and keep getting my videos up for you all. So thanks again, and thank you to all my existing and all my new subscribers. So I will get on with today's videos. Excuse me if I keep looking away. I've got them on an iPad down on the side. So I'm going to combine the first two questions because they are, what is your name and where do you come from? I'm Helen, and I suspect most of you already know that. I do sometimes wear my little Helen necklace in my videos as well. So yeah, I introduce myself on most of my videos. So I am Helen, and again, I do often mention that I live in the lovely southwest of England. I live in Plymouth, and it is a beautiful part of the country. We are very lucky to have gorgeous beaches. We have some really interesting rocky and pebble beaches near us, and we have some lovely golden sandy beaches not that far away, just across the border into Cornwall. And then also the other side of us on Plymouth, not very far away at all, we have the lovely Dartmoor, which is fantastic for hiking, for walking, exploring, for looking at the ponies. And yeah, I think we're very lucky down here in our neck of the woods, and I've lived here for just over 3 years now, and I'm happy to call Devon and Plymouth my home. Okay, so how long have I been sewing? So I only started sewing after I had my daughter, and she is my youngest of 4. And when I had the 3 boys, they were quite close in age. So I have to say I didn't have any sort of free or extra time to be taking up a new hobby. But by the time my daughter came along and the boys were starting to get into nursery and school, I had a little bit more time on my hands. And of course, it was a big difference with having a girl. I was buying pretty handmade dresses and skirts and bows from Etsy sellers and people on Facebook, and I suddenly started to think, well, maybe I could give this a go. And I did start out with hair bows. If I can find any pictures, I'll put them in. I didn't have a sewing machine because I'd never done sewing, so I used to sit there in the evenings and hand sew them. And then I realized that getting a simple sewing machine would make my life a lot easier. So at the time I lived in America, so I popped into my local Walmart and picked up a machine for $99, and it was a Brother, can't remember the exact model, but it was a great starter machine. And I did do a few other little projects. I made 1 or 2 things like blankets for my children's toys, and I really enjoyed sewing. And then I started, when I came moved back to England, which was about 2015, I really got into bag making. So I did a lot more bag making in my early days of sewing, which actually I think put me in a really good place, because there was lots of technical difficulties and specifications when it comes to bag making. So I learnt basics, and then when I shifted more to dressmaking, which was when I moved here, so more like 2-3 years ago now, the basics really helped me out. And then I've started to learn about obviously making clothes to fit a bag. Obviously, if you get it wrong or you do your seam allowance wrong, really doesn't matter. It's not going to make a huge difference, but obviously something you wear, it's something you've got to concentrate on more. So yeah, only really in the last sort of 6 or 7 years have I started sewing, and in the last 2 to 3 I've really started to take an interest in sewing clothes for myself and family and friends. So my machines, I will probably insert photos, or if I get a chance after I've recorded this, I'll take some footage and pop that in. But I have a brother in novice, and I can't remember the exact model type. I will put that on the screen somewhere. And that's my basic machine, and it's a really good machine. I've had it now, I think, a couple of years. So I had my original $99 machine, and then a few years back, probably about 4 or 5 years back, my family chipped in to buy me a slightly better brother machine, and then in the last 2 years I bought myself this in novice, and I love it. It's a great machine. It's got loads of really good stitches on it, and the main reasons I wanted it, the 2 main reasons, is the automatic threader for the needle, which is fantastic, and the automatic cutter, and also the knee lift. And I didn't really worry too much about things like buttonholes and things like that, because at the time I'd never really sewn on any buttons, but it's actually got, I think, 5 or more buttonholes that it makes, so that's really good. And in actual fact, I have never used the knee lift, and I have broken my thread cutter on it. So 2 out of the 3 things I wanted it for don't actually use, but it's still a great little machine, and I'm really happy with it. I also have a brother overlocker, and that's the 1034D, I believe, which is great, fabulous. I love my overlocker. I do a lot of knitwear, and I tend to use the overlocker for the majority of the sew. And it wasn't a huge investment. I think it cost me about £130 at the time. So those are my 2 main machines that get used an awful lot. I also have 2 older machines, which again, I'll try and find photos of, because they're covered up and away at the moment. And they are both, I think they're both singers. I'll say that, and then I'll open it and one won't be. But definitely my oldest one is a singer, and it was a manual sewing machine originally, so it's got the wheel on the side, but someone has obviously previously converted it to electric, and it is a fantastic, hard working, solid machine. And I dig that one out a lot when I'm doing my bag making, because it's a lot of layers to cope with, so sometimes my machine can't cope. And also I found it really useful back a few years ago when I made my jeans with the top stitching, because I kept it threaded up with the top stitch, and I would do the majority of my sewing on my brother in novice, and then I would get my good old workhorse out and do all the top stitching with that one. So I have 4 machines, and yeah, I love them, and I would really love a cover stitch at some point, but you know, who knows, hopefully that won't be in too distant the future. So self-taught or formal classes. So I am, I would say, 90% self-taught. I started to learn and basically did YouTube tutorials for anything, and I googled a lot of things, and then I went on bag making retreats, which were lovely weekends I would spend in Wales, and everyone there is fantastic. The very first one I went to, I'd never really made a bag, not a real good structured handbag. But the people there that were joining in, a lot of them have been sewing for many, many years. And any time I had any problems, issue, or didn't understand, someone was always more than happy to help me out. So I love going to bag retreats, and I hope to do so again once the whole situation in the world gets a little bit more normal. And the other time where I've got help is I used to always go to a class once a week locally here with the lovely Lizzie at Make It 140, and she has an instructor called Vanessa who is fantastic. And I would take along, you take your own projects and then you're sewing them up, but with someone there to help you. And I found that a real boost in my sewing, because I could do the majority of it myself, but I felt more confident to get on with it, knowing that if I made a mistake or I wasn't sure of anything, Vanessa was on hand to help and advise. So that was fantastic, and I'm hoping again to be able to get back to those once things are more normal. I am a knits girl, I have to say. I have to say, I think a lot of us do, but I have unusual measurements, and I find it really difficult quite often to get the right fit on a woven. And so I tend to err towards the knits, because obviously they're much easier to get to fit because they've got the stretch and they're very forgiving, and also they're really easy to sew. I can whip things up on my overlocker. So I have done more woven recently than in previous years, and I hope to carry on with that. And trousers is my next biggie. I'd love some really nice fitted trousers. But yeah, at the moment it's knits. I make a lot of t-shirts because I'm a stay-at-home mum, and I tend to live in my joggers and my t-shirts, so knits are fantastic for me. Big four or indie? Again, I would have said categorically not long ago, definitely indie. I do like the fact they quite often have very detailed hand-holding type instructions, and they have a lot of them have photos, which I find really useful, and they quite often have online tutorials to go alongside them, which is great. But I do have quite a few of the big four that I like to make. One of my favorite tops that I wear all the time, in fact this is one of them, is the New Look 6217. So and I have a McCall's, which you probably saw in my last video, which I also love. So I do like the big four. I find that as I'm not a very experienced sewist, I lean towards the indie, because I find for me they give much easier to understand instructions. A lot of times with the big four, I can read the instruction 10 times and still not have a clue what they are wanting me to do. So yeah, for me it would just tip the scale and go for indies as my preference. This is a difficult one. Online or in store? I love the variety that I can get online, because obviously, you know, the big World Wide Web. And so there is a lot more that you can buy. However, I love the experience of being able to go into a shop, especially here in Plymouth. We have a couple of very good shops, which again, I'll always link them down below for you. I like to feel the fabrics and see, you know, actually in real life what they look like. And then of course, if you're doing a project, you can take one of the fabrics in the shop and put it alongside another fabric and see if they go well together. So I think, you know, that whole issue of being able to find the right fabric, it's better to go in store if you can. But then of course, online shopping, if you already know the fabric and you've seen it physically before, then you could go online, and obviously there'll be options quite often of different colours. But if you're looking for something and you want to find the perfect fabric, then I think going in physically and being able to touch and look at the fabric is always going to be my best option. So my favourite sewing task. Okay, so it would be easier for me to tell you my least favourite sewing tasks. That is deciding on the size, tracing patterns, cutting patterns. So a big part of the project I don't like. Once I get past that, I'm great. Yeah, I love the actual sewing, and I quite like pressing these days. I find it very calming. I know, it's very odd. I don't iron anything in my house. My husband and children will tell you I never iron our clothes. But when I'm making clothes, I love to get a really good press and a crisp seam. And yeah, I find it really satisfying. So I love the actual sewing, of course, and I do like to press as well. That'd be my two favourite parts of sewing any project. And so the final one, best advice for sewists. So, I mean, there's a lot of advice, you know, out there. My best advice would be a few things. Firstly, don't underestimate what you can do. Sewing is basically just a number of steps. You know, you don't have to do them all in one go. You don't have to do them at the same speed as everyone else. You can do 5-10 minutes a day and then come back to it. You can do all interfacing at one point, and you can do all top stitching at another. You can do all finishing seams. You know, it's not a race. And also, Laura's fantastic for saying this, the Specky seamstress. It doesn't need to be perfect. It does not, honestly, need to be perfect. If you are happy with it, you've a finished garment and you wear it, then that's fantastic. That is honestly all I would say out of the whole sewing experience, is enjoy it. I love sewing. I am by no means brilliant at it. And don't be fooled into thinking that myself and other vloggers out there only ever make, you know, perfect makes that come out well. Quite often we don't show you the tons of failures that go on at the same time, and they will always happen. You know, sewists will always make mistakes, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. If it's a seam that's gone wrong, rip it out, start again. If you don't like the finished project, give it to someone else, repurpose it. Honestly, I always think just enjoy what you do. Don't put pressure on yourself. Don't think others are putting pressure on yourself. Make the garment you want to make, whether it takes you half an hour or half a month. You know, who's counting? I think it's really nice to take the time to yourself and enjoy what you sew. So I think that about sums it up for my questions. I really enjoyed this little chat. I do hope you feel like you've got to know me a bit better if you're new to my channel, or even if you've been with me for a while. I will have some more videos coming up shortly, and next Friday Sews I will hopefully have some sewing chat and projects to show you. So do make sure you go and check out all the other Friday Sews vlogs that are going on. There's a hashtag and there's lots of us out there, and I love catching up with them at the end of the week. And I will see you all in my next video.